Good night and welcome to another episode of Wife Her Live. I am the host and founder of Wife Her, Zemi Stewart. I'll let my husband introduce himself. But we are closing our series on home ownership for the entire month of May. We spoke only about the home ownership process, and it's so great to come to the finale. We have done so many different lives, from singles purchasing a home to the legal aspect of home ownership, like the whole gamut we've discussed throughout this month. And so tonight we're talking about the real, raw, the honest truth of a home purchase. What happens not only after you sign, but years down the line after you've signed and you're really running that home. You may be doing renovations, you may be becoming a landlord, and the list goes on. And so that's what we're talking about tonight. Feel free to drop your comments live in the chat. Let us know where in the world you are joining us from. But without further ado, I'm going to let our guests introduce themselves, starting with my husband Ian. And so you introduce yourself and share a little bit about your home purchase journey.
Good day, everybody. Such a pleasure to be on once again, Wife Her Ministry, live. My name is Ian Stewart. I am Ian Stewart, better known as Mr. Wife Her. So my first purchase home, the first home that I purchased was about 5 years ago, roughly 4 or 5 years ago, which is the only home that I've purchased so far, bless the Lord. But that was a learning experience in and of itself. It was something that I desired to do for years, or to buy a property or to buy a home. But I always had in my mind that my first home would be at one point or another my rental property. I didn't want it to be my only home purchase, but at one point or another that it would be a home that I would eventually rent when I decided to build my final home. So as I said, it was a journey and it was a learning experience, and I took it just as that. And I think it's so important for persons to have other persons around you to help to provide that kind of guidance. And even as I went through that process, even though Zemi and I weren't married at the time, Zemi was very instrumental in guiding and helping me make my selections. And as we went through that process, so we'll talk more about the intricacies of that whole process when it came to the dynamics between me
and how he traumatized me,
and how she was traumatized by that. I mean, God knows what. I don't even know what she's talking about. What we're gonna say, it was a great process, and I'm just excited actually to embark on this journey once again when we decide to actually have our final home.
So let's move on to the Desmangles.
So Tamara Richie, also known as Chatting with the Desmangles on the Wife Her platform, where I am, Zemi, correct me, Vice President of Bahamas Operations.
Yes.
Yes.
And seasoned wife outreach officer.
Yes, seasoned wife outreach officer.
Yes.
We've been married for 12 years, and we purchased we are the parents of 2 daughters, Talia and Takaya, and we purchased our first and only home 2010. So 2 years into our marriage, we purchased our home, which is partly a rental property as well, a duplex. So that experience.
The experience was okay, but I want to introduce myself too. I don't have a fancy title or anything, so I will give myself the title of the husband of the vice president, seasoned married.
Exactly.
Of the Bahamas district. So I'm the special guest on the Chatting with the Desmangles on Wi-Fi. But the experience for us was working in the bank. I saw the experience of building a home, and I saw the experience of purchasing a home and remodeling it or doing upgrades. So based on that experience, talking to the wife, we decided to go and purchase something and then remodel it and make it something to our liking. Because the building from ground up is very traumatizing. Even when we were doing this, when we decided 5 years later, when we went to extend the home, we went up because it was a single level two duplex. We decided to go up on one of the apartments, one of the units. Even that experience was a bit frustrating. So knowing the experience of from ground up, we could attest to that and also purchasing turnkey.
Awesome. Next, moving on to Sashia, who is representing the Canadian market.
Even though I'm not a Canadian, I've been in Canada for quite some time. Came here in 2009, which is when I met Zemi at university, and I've been here since then. And since coming to Canada, it's always been a dream of mine to own property. When I first completed university, 7 years ago, that was the primary thing that I started saving up for as I was renting. So it is possible to rent and still save up for a deposit for your own property, even though you're pretty much paying someone else's mortgage and you're trying to save up for your deposit. But it is possible. And so I gave myself a 5-year window to save up that deposit, which I was able to do. But I was initially thinking of just buying my own personal property, but then the opportunity presented itself actually before I purchased my primary residence to buy an investment property. So I actually bought my first investment property and first property 2 years ago. And then the year after, which is 2019, I bought my primary residence. So you could almost say back to back, I was able to purchase 2 properties. But it's been an interesting experience because one is investment, one is my personal residence, and the way that you treat both are very different. So
Definitely. And Sashia has always been an excellent planner, even like she said, we knew each other in university. Her study schedule was amazing. I wish if I had mimicked that schedule, I probably would be in a much better position today. But I was always I always admired you for that. We had a fourth couple on our fourth guest tonight. There's Jean-Baptiste, who will be representing the U.S. market. But unfortunately, Talia wasn't feeling well, so they were unable to join us tonight. But let's send our prayers over to them that she feels better and that she'll be able to probably present another time. You can also follow her as well at Talia Jean-Baptiste, because she is a real estate agent and has a lot of content about the home purchase journey. And so you guys said some things and my brain was going like I have questions to ask. So I guess Sashia, you went last, so I'll go with you first. Your investment property, is that like a rental, Airbnb? What kind of format is your investment property?
it's a rental. Well, I guess I would say long term, because I mean that's dependent on the tenant themselves. But it is an annual lease that's renewable, so it's not Airbnb. That was never my intention when I initially bought it. Although at the time when I did buy it, Airbnb was very lucrative and very popular because of the area where I bought. But obviously, at the time when I bought, I wasn't interested in furnishing the apartment or had the liquidity to do so. So that really went off the table almost immediately. But I wanted steady income because I wasn't going to be in a position where I could contribute to that mortgage. So I needed to be sure that the rental income could more than cover that. So Airbnb, although it can be more in the long run if you have lots of turnover, if you don't, then you're putting yourself at risk that you may not be able to meet the mortgage. So I didn't really want to go that route for now, maybe in the future, but not for now. I just did a long-term tenant on an annual lease.
Awesome. So to give you that stability that you needed. So you use that additional income to help you get in a position for your second property?
No, they're two completely separate and apart. I switched jobs just before I bought my first property, which gave me a big boost in income that I could increase my savings almost twofold to then pay for the down payment for my second property. But bear in mind, my first property was a pre-construction, so I had a year and a half to make up to 20% deposit. So that was continuous, whereas my primary residence, you pretty much have to pay everything at the time of purchasing. So it was two different payment schedules that I was able to line up and get both of them done. So that worked out for me.
Awesome. So it's all about planning with the home purchase journey. And so I kind of laughed when Ian was talking, because I don't know if I had my concerns, and I don't know if he was ever going to make a decision on a property. We went and we searched so many different places, and it just felt as if you couldn't commit. I'd say, what's going on? What's going on? It's like, I don't know. And so as we were dating at the time, we weren't engaged. I was a little nervous. I was like, I don't know what's happening. And what happened with us was I was away in university for 4 months. And so the agreement was that I would rent from Ian when I came back from university. So I moved in when I came back from university. There was no power. There was no water.
But there was home. There was a home.
There was no furniture.
The sounds like 4 walls and a roof.
What's it called? What's the word for
Utilities?
Utilities, not utilities. The
the
fridge, stove.
Yeah.
They weren't set up. I almost had a no. The stove needed to be set up in the washing machine.
That's what she's in.
I almost had a panic attack. I thought that the relationship was coming to an end. I was like, I can't believe you had all this time of preparation, and I come home and literally nothing was done. Nothing was done. So, Ian, explain that to us, please. Yes, thank you. So much as appliances. Thank you.
Well, what had happened was, no, the home was purchased when Zemi and I, in fact, Zemi and I that was probably after our first year of dating. It wasn't even that far into our relationship when I actually purchased my first home. So I took Zemi. Obviously, if I taken a woman on a home search, you know that's deep. After relationship. All right, so let's start there. But Zemi and I, we started looking at different places. And Zemi, obviously, she had her heart set on different things with respect to the kind of home that she would want to live in. And actually, my final decision really was based heavily on what Zemi's feeling was towards that home property purchase was. So finally, we decided, let's move ahead with this property. Not property, it was a unit. It's a duplex, and
No, it was a townhome.
It's a townhome,
Yeah.
and we bought one of them, one of the two. Where our townhome is located is not necessarily the best area in terms of the environment, because we're somewhat next to a facility. But once again, it was still a nice area, so forth and so on. Quiet community.
I could walk around late at night.
Yeah.
So it's perfect for me.
So it's perfect for what Zemi was looking for in a home.
So get to why
So anyhow,
it wasn't furnished.
So it wasn't furnished. No, it wasn't furnished. I was looking for different things, wanting to do all things, when you procrastinate and you start looking for stuff and especially when you don't find what you really want, when it comes to furniture and things of that nature. And because I wasn't necessarily finding the kind of stuff that I really wanted, in fact, that's what kind of the conundrum we are even in this place. Certain things that we really like and we really want, we're not able to find. And I would rather wait to see whether or not I find something I like than to just put something in there just for putting something in their sake. And I think Zemi is the kind of person who is very much so impulsive when it comes to purchasing things of that nature.
Ian, I didn't want to sleep on the floor.
No, she didn't want to sleep on the floor, no.
I can't blame you there. I can't blame you there.
We still wanted to purchase things that we liked. And at the end of the day, one of your godmother, was able to accommodate you.
Yes.
Yeah, Zemi's godmother was able to accommodate her.
For quite a number of weeks.
For a number of weeks. Listen, y'all hear that? For a number of weeks, they was able to accommodate her while we got the house sorted out.
But this draws
a number of weeks, guys. Let me get back to this.
I was in school for 4 months. Let's talk about, because a lot of people say, as couples, men say, I need to purchase my home before I propose or before I make that step with somebody.
Well, some men, right?
So
and I think
you also had that point of view,
precisely,
where you wanted to make sure that you had a home. What is that based in?
I think, mine was purely based on the influence of my parents, my dad. My dad was, and my dad never told me, now you make sure you put this girl, you have a house to put this woman in. That was never, something he never told me, but I knew that was something that he did before he married my mom, that he actually purchased a home for them prior to them getting married. And so because of his influence that I said to myself that I always wanted and desired to have a home to put my wife in. And I know the times are so different from the ability of persons to purchase homes at that time compared to what it is that persons at our age to be able to purchase homes. It's so much more difficult for young persons to acquire property, much less a home, than it was 50 years ago. And so I think that's something that people need to be realistic about. And I think even though I wanted to actually purchase a standalone home, I need to be realistic about the fact that, you know what, let me try and purchase an investment property, as Sashia did, so that I can build up, obviously, a level of income, but also I'd have a place for my wife to move into whenever we got married. And that was really the genesis of my desire to do so.
Yeah. So Richard, did you have the same kind of viewpoint where
Nope.
you guys were already married, right? 2 years in, I think.
We were already
when you
married.
purchased. Okay. Sorry, we have
My
fur babies running around the house. That's the noise. So what's that process like as a married couple searching for your forever home?
Well, the process was I allowed Tamara to make most of the decisions when it came to which house we were settling on. Because at the end of the day, when we turn key and we go in, I want you to know that you had free reign. You decided this property and not that one. So now we have to live with this one and we make it work. I mean, I had a little bit of influence as well, but I basically allowed her to make most of the decisions on terms of the size or the location, especially the location as well.
I mean, I think for us, when we made the decision, like we always knew we wanted our own home. Granted, now when Richie and I got married, I was already living on my own. So, if he had tell me he was waiting to put me in a home, we may not have been here. Not to say that wouldn't have happened, but like Ian said, it could take a little while. And I really know if I was going to wait all that time. Not if I looking just only to him. You know, what one salary could do, 2 salaries could do even better. So you got to look at it from that standpoint. We, with Richard working in the bank, we decided to look at the distressed property listings. So that was a route that we took when we were looking to purchase a home. Not always well received, because when you're dealing with people who house or home is up for repossession, when you want, even though the bank would say, okay, we'll schedule an appointment for you to do a walkthrough, I think this one, when we came here, a tenant was still in here. And it was like, no, y'all ain't coming in my place. Pretty much. And that wasn't even that. They weren't even the owners. They were just the tenant. So that experience was like, do we really want to take that route? But I think for me or for us, when we did decide on this particular home, everything, like we totally saw the hand of God. Like he confirmed what we should go and bid, go in with the bid with, and we went under and we got it. Like it was just things just lined up for us to know that this is what it should have been. Now the process in remodeling, even when we first bought this, that was a whole, I tell people, home buying in marriage, if your marriage already a little shaky, oh, ain't easy. It's not an easy process, especially if both parties want to be involved. So,
for sure. So I guess we can all go around. What was the most surprising thing about the home purchase process? Like, what stood out to you the most as, wow, this caught us off guard? I mean, I guess Richard knows a lot of the process because he's in banking, but did anything stand out to you?
Well, not much, but the closing costs, I'm thinking, would be like the most surprising thing for any individual, because most people think in their mind that all I need is my down payment and then I'll be straight. No, down payment is the first step. And then when you have to calculate closing costs, and before you even go into making an application, you have to, first of all, you have to get an appraisal done, and you have to pay out of your pocket, not knowing that you will be approved or not. So you have to come up with funds to pay for the appraisal, and then you have application fees, you have commitment fees with the bank, and then when you look, you have to do a land survey report, because the land surveyor has to go to make sure that the property, the home, is sitting on the right property, and you're not over the markings and so forth, and all of that is out of your pocket. So those are the surprising things. And then some persons think that it's even easier when you then go through all that. But the home insurance, when you get those quotes for home insurance, and when the bank is looking for you to fully comprehensive insurance, meaning that you have to insure it for the rebuilding value versus the mortgage value. Because customers think, but I only owe the bank 150,000. Why I have to insure my home for 250,000? Because that's the value of the home. Is that if the home is destroyed, you want to rebuild the home and not just pay off the mortgage. So those type of things is very surprising in the whole process.
And I think for me, without Richard being in banking, the biggest thing that stood out for me was the length of time it took for us to actually get in the home. Because I remember we started the process, I was pregnant like February, and we never got in the home until October. So it was just a long, that and the depletion of funds. Those two things, like that was a big shocker.
And then you must, and you must have a good lawyer who does a thorough title search of the property, because you don't want the property to be in any judgment. Or there was it's like we had the case where we were purchasing from the repossessed list. You don't want it to be any judgment because the husband and wife was divorced and they didn't settle the home during the divorce. Or there may be a lien against the home that was never paid off at another place. Stuff like that could take you by surprise too, because your eye is set on this property, and the minute the title search and the lawyer start doing his work, we can't move forward because we can't go 30 years back because of a judgment that's 2 years ago or so forth. And it just sometimes you could be crushed, and you have to start all over again in the process. So
wow. Yeah, we talked about that, the legal aspects, and he brought up the very same thing about title transfers and how that's such an important part, especially in the Bahamas, and I'm sure in Nevis as well, any Caribbean country where you have family transfer and generational property and the family is expanding and there's no good documentation. I'm sure that happens where you have to do the same thing. So on to you, Sashia. What stood out to you? Maybe either one, investment property, or your second home in terms of the buying process?
I would agree with the closing costs, because they say you should budget 1 to 2% of the purchase price as your closing costs. And usually you get caught up in buying and you find a home, you love it, you're thinking about yourself being in the property, and then coming close to closing, you have to find all this money. So that was, for me, the first time around, that caught me off guard. Not to say that I didn't have the funds, but then it depletes your funds because, putting everything into making sure that you get this property. At the end of it, you're like, okay, now I have to think about furnishing this place. Even though it's a lot going into it, so I would agree the first time, closing costs caught me off guard. But even above and beyond that, just how much time you put into finding the home that's right for you. For my investment property, I didn't spend much time. It was more calculated. From my personal property, it took me a while. I had certain things set in my mind that I wanted, and I had to compromise. And my partner made it very clear to me that I'm not going to get everything in my $1 million home. Well, it's not going to be $1 million one. And two, it's like some things are just not necessities; they're wants, not needs, and so you have to compromise on some things. And that was kind of what took me by surprise when I was looking for my primary home, because I wanted this, this, and that, and then in the end, you realize some of them are things that you actually it's just dreams and aspirations that you could probably compromise on, given that it's not gonna be your forever home. You're gonna probably look to move somewhere else if you want more space for kids or whatever, but just don't think that everything has to check off. There will be deal breakers. Make sure that you satisfy those, but not everything is a need.
For sure. That's really good. What about you?
No, I mean, I have to concur with obviously what everybody said. Richard hit it right on the head. All the additional costs that you really don't anticipate, you really don't think about when you're purchasing your home. I would recommend anybody, if you have your down payment, I would say double your down payment when it comes to just really considering all the additional costs. There's stamp duty, there's legal fees, there are closing costs. There's just so many fees that you really don't necessarily think about going into purchasing a home. So I'm just going to concur with what everybody else has said so far.
And it sounds like we need to tap into that Canadian market, because you said 1.5 of the purchase price. That legal fees here, I mean, not here, we're in the US now, but legal fees in the Bahamas are 2.5% of the purchase price. That's just legal fees, right? And so obviously, I'm sure that Bahamians are paying even more, for the home. And that's kind of what makes it more difficult for young Bahamians, especially, to get into a home. And a part of what inspired this series, to have people be informed so that they say, okay, I'm going to take my 5 years and save towards this goal, or my 6, 7, 8, whatever many years, and really save towards this goal, because I do want to be in my home one day.
And I think you also have to consider just property taxes as well.
Yeah.
Moving in when you're considering purchasing a home. A lot of times, particularly when it comes to real estate in the Bahamas, a lot of people are in arrears when it comes to their property taxes, and I don't think you could even actually transfer title until your property taxes have been cleared, or that you come up with some arrangement, I'm assuming, with the government. So it's so important to know that whenever you're going to purchase a property, to know also that the property taxes are up to date. So put that in consideration as well.
Definitely, and that is very important for parents who want their child to inherit the property. They may get a property and they can't afford to pay those property taxes, so it was their beloved childhood home, but unfortunately, they just can't keep it. And so that's important for parents to take note of as well. But let's move on to the making your house a home process. And what was that like? Did anyone's style change, over the course of the process? They're like, oh, I thought I liked modern, but I really like formal. What stood out to you in that process? Anyone who wants to go first?
Well, when we first purchased the duplex, before we went and do the upgrades, the floor plan was a bit different. The floor plan was the kitchen was separated. The kitchen was separated from the living room, and we started seeing where. Let me tell you something. Don't watch HGTV. No. Don't stay away from HGTV whenever you want to do renovation.
Serious.
HGTV will have you crazy.
Changing, and our contract control is that, because you would be switching you made a decision, but
Every
you see
Sunday
that
night.
you're like, I want this, I want it this way. So once you make a decision, just stand by your decision, and that was pretty much it. When we first bought it, we didn't do any major changes. We just did a lot of cosmetic stuff, so we changed the tub, the toilet, those things. Did we change any cabinets when we first buy it? No, we retiled, those kind of stuff. But it wasn't until we actually went up on the other side where we are now that we changed the floor plan. And then we were able to, say we want our master to be a certain way, but the walk-in closet a certain size. We wanted the girls' room upstairs with ours, that kind of stuff. But yeah, we just kind of stuck away from the HGTV, because as simple as choosing knobs on the cabinetry, you want the circular one or you want the handle one, you want everything.
And then when you get into that Do I want it in gold, silver, bronze?
You want soft clothes or you don't want a soft
And do
clothes?
you want an appliance closet on the countertop?
It was just,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
Literally,
Yeah, it
anyone
was-
who knows
it-
statistics knows it literally infinite options
Yeah.
when it
Yeah.
comes to not
Mhm.
not just your home, but like literally even your kitchen, a
Mm-hmm.
bedroom, infinite ways that you could design, and that is almost like nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
And every time you watch and you talk to people, they say the different type of countertops they have. You have the Korean, you have the marble, you have the quartz, and now there's this new one called the butcher's wood. So
Mhm.
every other day you say, I wonder if I should get the Korean, I wonder if I should get the marble, granite. Like, but you have to look at your budget.
Yeah.
Because
That
at the
makes
end
a
of the
difference.
day,
Oh, yeah.
that makes a big difference.
That
That will
makes a
humble you.
What
difference.
type of backsplash do you want? And all
And
that.
then and even like the young lady said, some things are wants and some things are needs. So you have the conversation and say, this is what I am not willing to sacrifice. Like I need the big tub. I need my soft close cabinets because I got children who can be slamming doors and I ain't enough to like to kill them, you know? So just close it and they can finish close by itself. Yeah, I need that for sanity. Um, it's a lot of compromising, even as it relates to paint choice.
Yeah.
So I had to be mindful that, okay, Richie is already like overtaken with 3 ladies in his life. So I can't do all pinks and purples. But then again, I'm really a fan of blue. So hence we have yellow and we have the mint green to give it kind of like a softer touch. So it's just, I think for us, the biggest thing was just making the decision and sticking and standing by the decision in terms of putting your own personal touch on the home as a
Yeah,
couple.
that's good. That's good.
I think, well, for Zemi and I, there was some clashing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we had some sweet
Some
clashes.
tears.
What?
Let me tell it, and then you can.
Yeah, I know. I only wanted to introduce it. Go ahead.
You know when you're walking in the furniture store and he asked me, "Oh, you like that?" I said, "Yeah, I like that." I didn't like it for my home, but I liked it. You know what I mean? So all of a sudden, and it was a rug. All of a sudden, I see this rug delivered. It was a leather rug, like burgundies and browns. And when Ian put that in the living room, like everything in me was just like. And I know it sounds silly and it's just a rug, but I literally was crying because I felt as if I was like, I have no.
I don't have any say.
I wanted a voice in the home.
I didn't have any say.
Ian isn't one of those people, even with the wedding process. So I already knew this. Ian isn't one of those husbands who's like, here, honey, see the card. You know, he is involved. And so I felt as if I couldn't do anything. So I even said, well, I'm going to take the guest room and that's going to be my design. But then obviously he have the money still. So I still need to go through Ian. I'm like, I need some more money to design my room. So we had a ton of clashes in the process, and I don't know why what makes it so? Because your mommy is the one who's designing the home. So please explain to me why you feel you need to be all involved in the design process.
Because I have an appreciation. I think I have appreciation for certain things, and certain things that I want to see in my home. If I'm going to live there, I want to be comfortable as well.
But even with that, Ian.
Mm-hmm.
Like even with the couch, I really wanted this green couch. And when Ian said I couldn't have the green couch, again, I wanted to cry. Because I would walk in a place and I would smile. I'm like, oh, I love how it looks. But if I buy a green couch and Ian isn't really a fan of the green couch, he'll still watch TV and be fine. He won't be thinking, oh, like, I really hate this green couch that she made me buy. Like, it won't upset his mood. Like it would upset my mood.
It definitely will.
Oh, sorry.
No, it definitely will upset your mood. No, I mean, as I said, I think I just like to be involved in the home buying, the process of whatever it is that's going to be permanent for me. And I think I have appreciation for certain things. Like I like. His
taste is better than mine.
No, it's not that. I think we have like taste, but certain things about our taste also clashes. And so like I have to be like I am more. I like prints. Yeah, Zemi is a print kind of person. I am more clean lines, more modern. I have a more modern taste. Zemi has she is a little bit more eclectic than I am. So she would buy bold colors and greens, and I have appreciation for that, but I think in less, in smaller pieces. So I may get like a nice green vase is fine with me, but a whole green couch,
A throw pillow away.
which we have right behind us. So that process for us when we were in our first home in the Bahamas was we had clashes, but at the same time, I think what helped us was when we decided to get an interior designer. And that person, well, yeah, she was in Kira. Yeah, she was able to kind of help to blend our styles and come up with a plan that was that was good with both of us, that we both liked, that we both had an appreciation for. And so she just puts one or two things together, and that's what she did with our master bedroom. I thought it turned out good. It turned out pretty decent.
And I would say too, one of the issues that cause trouble is in the Bahamas, everything is more expensive. So furniture is more expensive. So if I bring something in the home, I have to commit to that.
Yeah.
Like I have to really, really commit to that item. Versus here, I think we could be a little bit more flexible. Things aren't as expensive, and even to have it resold, stuff like that. So that was kind of causing the issue that if we put it in the home, we both had to really love it. And some pieces we really did not enjoy. Like Ian made this decision in our master bedroom that he wanted 2 chest of drawers, like as the night tables.
That she was there when I purchased.
I didn't agree with that. Understand it from the beginning. And so we had all of these little clashes, and I hope nobody is like us because it was so frustrating. But it was a lot of trial and error to come to a happy medium. And now we rely more on digital tools and software. I'm like, Ian, if you really want that in the home, please put it on a floor plan. Let me see it visualized. Yeah. And so we've kind of, gotten to know each other through the process where I'm like, I need to see it. Don't bring in hair yet. I need to see it. And so, Sashia, I know you were on a journey with your fiance. So I don't know if you had similar, mishaps. Hopefully not. But what was
not
the
really.
process like?
He is more hands off. I think he prefers to not have those clashes. And so he's chosen to just, whatever you like, go for it. But if there's something that's too feminine, then he will speak up and he's like, I don't like that. But if it's neutral or, modern, he likes more wood. I like darker, like whites and grays. So kind of finding a balance between the two is what we did. But mostly he stays out of it. Which I quite like. But I mean, even for myself, I would say to this day, it's been 2 years and my home isn't fully furnished yet. Yeah. Because I'm taking my time looking for pieces that I think fit. And even now I buy 3-4 different variations of the same thing. I put it down, look at it for a week or two, see how I feel about it. And if I don't like it, I return it. And I do that. In constant rotation.
Not the flexibility of doing that, not in the Bahamas.
Not in the Bahamas. And that's another thing that even took us so long before we changed our furniture to the front room. It was just easier for us to get it reupholstered because you only choosing a fabric and you good with that.
Yeah.
But some things too, I just like. Oh, if that's what you want to do, I like it. Don't matter. Like I
need some of that.
I don't really get caught up. Like for me, my bedroom is my sanctuary. Everything else you could do if you want. You could do whatever.
So that's why I can't get the little sofa in the bedroom now. I want a little sofa, just a small sofa in the bedroom. I don't know where I can put it because the bedroom ain't that big, but something to have to move.
When you could foresee a fixture just end up being another part of the closet on the outside, that's what's gonna happen. You can just end up throwing clothes on the.
Oh yeah.
Makes no sense. Makes no sense.
So when Ian is a chair guy, the chair. Definitely.
So, when he decided that we were going to change the furniture, he did the whole digital thing, the floor plan. He come in, Belgium, look, this is how we can look. And I'm like, okay, just let me know when we're going to pick it because I need to make sure I go with the colors in the house. That's all. So hence we have brown, the walls are yellow. It go work. Plus you got a factor and you have children. I can't get nothing. We don't have the luxury to say this is the sofa where nobody sits on, only special
Yeah.
guests. No, this is
And
the
we made that
everyday.
mistake too.
You know,
It's
Ho, ho,
even the
ho, ho,
sofas
ho.
where the
Ain't no
plastic's
we.
still on it.
Yes,
No,
we did. Oh, you
no, that's the
What you gonna
everyday
say?
sofa.
in the house back home.
Oh, okay.
So I am a klutz, the klutz of all klutzes, right? Even my big 30-year-old self. And Ian purchased like sand color sectional, and I was like, I'm gonna.
You can see Kool-Aid and
So
juice.
I call it Zemi proofing. You know, I think I call it things that to be Zemi proof. Like we have leather in the house now. I stand it up almost every day, you know, but Ian really wanted leather. So it's just a part of the process now. I don't know if anyone wants to talk about how you manage conflict in these decision-making process. This Mangles, y'all have more years than us. I don't know if you want to say how you manage the conflict in the process. If one person just gotta say,
We
okay,
fix the conflict pretty good. You know, whoever pays for it makes the big decision. We rarely have conflicts in terms of choosing.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think when we did have the conflicts, we would just kind of like step away for a minute, and then come back and say, okay, let's look at this again. Not the same day, because you could get very emotional or heated with choosing things that will be, you know, what is deemed final for both of you. So for us, I think I remember when we were choosing the paint.
The outside thing.
The outside paint. Yes. That was like a big deal because I did not want white, even though white is the cheapest, that you could go that route. And I have to remind, you know, you a banker and my husband is a Haitian. Okay. So saving is like deep in his blood, like deep, deep, deep. Like I gotta be rubbing up all kind of, you gotta release this money, like it can be a little more, but you gotta
But that's
release
so
it.
nice.
We have to work within the
Saving.
budget. What you think? We have to work within a budget.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I totally agree with you, Rich. You gotta
So
work
yeah,
within what the confines of your budget and the money that you got.
I agree. And for me, if it's something that I want, if I have to wait and save a little more to get what it is I would like,
Mhm.
I can do that. It ain't gonna be no real pressure. If you telling me no right now because budget is stopping us, well then tell me what I need to do, because I can still need to get what I want. So
even if you need to take up
Take a little
some
longer.
extra overtime, etc.
yeah, if it can take some extra time, a longer length of time, or I gotta forego a little something here or there, yeah. But I think that was probably the biggest, that the paint and the texture of the outside, because we have like a spray finish, like a rough texture, which we decided on it would take a little bit better with the wear and tear. So that was probably the biggest thing, and it's just a matter of stepping away and then coming back when all heads are calm, you're level-headed, and you could say why it is you feel the way you feel. Because I'll never forget when we did purchase the home, after you've already depleted all of your savings and you feel like you back on paycheck to paycheck. That ain't really the best. But I'm thankful for persons in my life. I had a lady who was like a mom who passed, and she would tell me, she'd say, Tamara, you're gonna have to drive past your house and admire it, because that's where all of your money went. So like the first 2 years, like every time let's just drive past. Wow, that's a beautiful house, eh? Man, it sounds crazy, but you're looking at your bank account and this is where the money going. So I can need to love when I pull up here.
For sure.
Yeah.
So Sashia, your home was you said the first one was pre-construction phase, where you got a plan and then you just did like customizations. What was that like?
Because it's a condo, I mean, the builder that I chose, I shouldn't say there's not a lot of customizations, but they're very standard customizations. So they had 3 packages, and essentially there were 3 different color schemes. So If you chose one package, then the backsplash, the kitchen cabinets, the bathroom cabinets, the bathroom tiles would be one color. If you chose another one, it would be a different color. So it was very standard because the builder wanted most of the units to look very uniform. So, and for me, because I knew it was going to be investment property, I wasn't going to spend any extra money on bells and whistles. So that was very straightforward. I liked kind of grays and whites, so I chose that package that pretty much has the same colors throughout the condo. So that was very straightforward. It took me less than 5 minutes.
So would you say? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Would you say that option, something like that, like when you have only these select packages, would be best for like a newlywed couple? To avoid all of the customizations and the conflict, or you should say y'all just go through the process.
It helps if you have that option, but if you want to be involved, then I think that kind of takes that element away from it. Because as I said, it took me literally 5 minutes. I looked at the 3 different color schemes and like, oh, I don't like this, I don't like this, let's go with this. I mean, if I had to think about it a bit more, I may have wanted to change a few things, but again, it was an investment property, so I didn't care too much about customization. So for your personal home, I would say go through the process because I'm doing that right now. When we bought the home, it looked fine based on what we wanted, but we're gonna go through the process of renovating the bathroom, the kitchen, and eventually doing the basement. And so that's where those discussions will happen. And I wouldn't change that because I mean it's both of us reside here, so we have to choose something that will work for both of us. And I think it's a good way to know your partner and to experience things that you probably otherwise wouldn't experience in other areas of your relationship. So I would say do it. But I mean, if you don't care about that discourse and you just want to just pick something because we need to go ahead and you don't want to go through the process, then I think the packages work fine. But usually with your home, you want it to have an individual touch, right? So eventually you're going to end up changing things. Even if you choose the package, you're going to say, well, I didn't quite like this. Let me go change that. And then that discussion will still come about because you're not going to leave the home untouched when you move in. You're going to want to do stuff to it anyway. So you can't really avoid those kind of conversations.
I agree.
And
I like what you said about what it brings out in the relationship. Obviously, we are living proof of that, of the things that it brought out in the relationship. And like you said, Ian, we brought in a third party to help us when we were really, going through the heat of the conflict. And like I said, it was waterworks every so often with me. Bringing in a third party to help mediate.
I was good.
The process.
It's fine.
I mean, and it all boils down to expectations. I had an expectation like Sashia that my husband was going to be the type to say, oh, you bought something nice. Oh, and just, oh, nice. But I wasn't expecting someone to be so hands on. And so if I wasn't expecting it, I couldn't prepare for it.
Right.
And I kind of saw it in the wedding process, but obviously, like, we already had the home when we got married. I lived in it, then Ian moved in. And so, but I didn't really get to see that. We didn't design together before marriage and stuff like that. But I did get to see that in the wedding process. Because again, Ian was very heavily involved in that. So I guess the wedding process. So even planning your wedding will help you to see how people make decisions. Do they drag their feet? How do they handle stress? So all of those things, don't think that that's not them. That's them. And that's what you're going to see throughout every single decision-making process. When you're in a pinch, and you have to make a decision, that same person is coming out. And so, through all of these phases, you get to see new areas of your spouse and improve on how you manage conflict. And hopefully and thankfully, that is what we've done. And so we talked about purchasing, we talked about design, the dismantles. I know you have experience with renovation. Sashia, I don't know if you've renovated any area yet.
No, I'm actually hoping to do that in a few months. I had to put it on
you
hold.
want to start. Are you looking for a contractor now, or how are you planning to do it?
So when we initially were going to make some changes just before the pandemic, we had gone through the exercise of getting a few contractors in, getting them to do quotes, just kind of picking their brain to see how they could change the space, because I mean we have limited space. It's a townhouse, so we can't build out, or we can't do anything on the outside to extend the home. But we could decide whether we want to use up more space for the bathroom, because for me the bathroom is my zen. That's the one place that I like the most, second to the bedroom. And so we had a few people come in and give us some quotes and kind of tell us their ideas of how they could recreate the space. So we went through that process, got quotes, and then we went through the process of started looking for fixtures and that sort of thing of what we wanted to put in there. And then now that's kind of out of the way. And so we're looking to just bring somebody in based on who we got before, who we liked. So it's not really just about price. Price is definitely a good consideration, but it's also about the workmanship of that particular person, what kind of projects they've done in the past, what were people's feedbacks from that project.
Yeah.
And also just how they communicate and how efficient they are in doing their work. Because somebody could charge you $5,000 to do the bathroom, but then something that should have taken 2 to 3 weeks is 2 to 3 months, because you're doing one piece today, one piece tomorrow, and then there's 3 different projects, and at the end of it, you only have your bathroom 3 months later when it should have been 3 weeks later. So it was a matter of we felt, could have done the job the best, and we connected with, and yeah, I mean, that was really what we were looking for, somewhere that we felt comfortable, because these are not people that we know personally. These are people that we have gone on professional websites, looked at reviews, looked at the kind of work that they did, had them come in, give their estimates, show their past projects. And at the end of it, it's really a combination of cost, efficiency, workmanship, and just your general connection with that person or group of persons.
That's really good. I think that's going to help a ton of people to really consider so much beyond price when they pick their contractor for these renovation projects, or even to build from the ground up. So,
and I think, sorry, just to add to what Sashia was saying, I think it's so important for persons to do their homework. You know what I mean? Like, do the research, try and find different contractors, whether or not that's looking on listings, websites. A lot of times, particularly in the Bahamas, everything is who you know. So your cousin, your daddy used a contractor 20 years ago that he probably recommended you today, and that person probably isn't as good as somebody else who might be more reputable. And a lot of Bahamians get burned when they hire contractors that do either shoddy workmanship, or that, as in Sashia's case, they take a whole lot of time, longer time than what was originally anticipated. And I've never done a renovation myself, but when I lived at home, my parents renovated their home. My parents renovated their home. Yes. And I saw that process, and I saw what that process was like for them. And unfortunately, they had to find another contractor midway through the process, and it was a nightmare. And it took us, I think, an additional maybe 6 months than what was originally anticipated to actually move back into the home. And so it's so important, as I said, to do the homework. Try and find persons that are reputable, and just keep your ear to the ground. You don't want to find that one person that's going to make a $10,000 job to cost $30,000, and it's happened. So do your homework.
And even when I was growing up, you reminded me. I think it was right before Hurricane Floyd in 1999. My parents were building a second story on the home, and actually the home that my parents purchased used to have a second story that was totally destroyed in Andrew. It was a wooden structure. And so my parents moved in and made a home out of what used to be the garage, which was a crazy renovation experience when I was like 4 years old, that I remember sweeping the water out of the house and everything. But when I was about 11, they decided that they wanted to go, maybe 10, they decided they wanted to go up on the second story. My mom went with a friend of hers. And when Floyd came, that concrete that he had started to build a structure, the concrete literally crumbled. He mixed too much water in with the concrete. And so if my family had moved into that structure, imagine if we had been in there when a hurricane came. We would have been in a horrible position. And I'm sure we would have bunkered down in the first floor, but we would have lost even more of an investment. And so even with that, it's important to really not just go with your family, friends, but really go with, like Sashia said, reputation, how we
Mhm.
match cost, duration, etc. All of that is very important. Now, the Desmangles, I know you guys did, like you said, a full scale renovation, building a top story. You had kids as well at that time. So, what was that like with the kids mobilizing a whole renovation?
Well, Talia was
Tamara
4.
just, I don't want to
Talia
think
was
about
4. I think Takaya was 1.
Yeah.
No, Takaya was in 1. She was walking, remember? Yeah. Takaya was 1. Yes,
One.
yes.
One
Takaya
girl,
was
so-
1. She's going. No, she was 1.
She was okay. She was
She was
one.
one. Takaya was 1. Sorry, because we moved in 2015. Takaya moved in
Yes.
2014.
Yes. Yes.
So Takaya was 1 when we moved in, and they would come in and I would tell them what this is gonna be like and so forth. Show them where their room was gonna be and so forth. But I mean, for me to say that they took in everything and understood, I don't think they did. But
They're not a care in the world.
they didn't have a care in the work.
I remember because we were living on one side while the renovation was actually going on. I remember when they had poured the concrete for the top floor.
It drained over.
It drained over on our side, and I was like, "What is going on?" That was like we saw it when we came home. It wasn't bad, but it was just like living through the renovation. Like if I had to do that now working remote, I think that would have been like super crazy, super annoying. Because right now the lawnmower being outside and I working from home, I'd be like, if you're in a meeting, all that in your background, like, oh my God, I
want to talk about one experience though.
what's that? Go
When
ahead.
the pipe burst upstairs.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So renovations, like you say, a $10,000 job would cost you $30,000.
Mhm.
Using a family.
But it wasn't family. It had nothing to do with family.
That was daddy the bad fun. Daddy use a crack.
It's no,
Listen,
please, I don't want to.
so my dad went to plumbing, right? Because he's a plumber by profession. There was a hairline crack in the pipe that we were told you would not have been able to see because
No,
it
you
was on
wouldn't.
the inside of the pipe itself. So it wasn't until we had moved in, we were
But a
in
year later.
a year or two later, and then the pipe burst in the wall upstairs. And
Wow.
so this was like we sleeping.
Like 9 o'clock? No.
Yeah.
9 o'clock, the children were going to bed.
Yeah,
so
we
had
were going to bed. We were going to bed. I stepped my foot out of the bed to go put the kids down, and my foot in water. And so water coming out the sockets, water, like it was bad. It was bad. And so we had to literally shut down the water supply to the building. So we had to make our tenant privy that, okay, we experiencing some challenges. Then, you have to go and, then let the insurance company know, because all of this now is covered, water damage or burst pipe. You're paying for it, but you ain't really sure what you're paying for.
Right.
So then you find out that, okay, it's actually covered. And then you have to now, your newly renovated place, you got to break into the wall to replace the piping. So that was an experience as it relates to home, building, owning, purchasing. And then 2, maintenance is very important.
the termites.
Yeah, termite, that's another thing you got to make sure, even though when you build, they spray the foundation for termite, but now they're saying that what used to be what is deemed a lifetime or warranty, it only will last the building for 7 years. So you have to now drill into the walls, into the foundation for them to spray whatever is needed. So maintenance is very important as it relates to being a tenant, and you could just call a landlord and say, "This is what I'm experiencing." As a landlord, it falls on you. That's where the buck stops. And I am very particular as it relates to that, because being a tenant, I never had a bad landlord experience before we purchased, and I always knew the kind of landlord I wanted to be.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, if the tenant calls clause and say, we have the zinc is clogged. Okay, when is somebody going to be home? You reach out to the plumber right away. There was an incident a few weeks ago. She sent a video. She was getting a lot of wild ants coming in through the door. So we had the exterminator come. So I am like that kind of we're that kind of landlords because I think that's important. You have people who pay you, to live in comfort. They never, they're not late or they don't owe you. And at the end of the day, it's still our building. Regardless to if they were or whatever the situation is, you still have to maintain it. And I think that was the biggest adjustment too, always being ready for the unplanned incident that happen with being a landowner.
Yep, I agree. So Sashia, you are also a landlady. So what I know, what have you had to do or what's different in that process? And even I think one of my final questions would be about the renter's experience, you personally versus being a homeowner. But what about being a landlord has stood out to you?
It's important to do proper screening of tenants. Not that I've been burned by it. I've been a tenant myself, and as what was mentioned before, you want to treat people the same way you were treated, or if you were treated badly, you want to treat them differently because you don't want to be that landlord. So for me, my landlady experience is relatively new, really just a few months old because the pre-construction just completed the end of last year. So the main concern that I had going into the process was really finding a tenant that would take care of the property. Because yes, as a land person, you have to maintain it, but I mean, you shouldn't have to do unnecessary things because of negligence by your tenant. So finding somebody that's not going to, mark the walls and, break cabinets and, crack things, that was my main concern. And also in terms of the timeliness of payment, because I mean, in Canada, as a tenant, you have a lot more rights than as a landlord. So if you put someone in there, it's triple more difficult to get them out. So that's why they always stress getting somebody that's a good fit as opposed to just looking at the dollar signs, because sometimes someone might be willing to give you $100 more, but then the person that was willing to give you $100 less because budget constraints, they were probably a better fit for you. So it's not always with the highest bidder. You have the opportunity to find out more about the person. Obviously, the standard things would be background check, credit check. You can speak to previous landlords, acquaintances of that person, colleagues, just finding out about the individual themselves and, whether they're single, they have a partner, they're married, or whether they have pets, making sure that whoever that individual is aligns with who you want in your unit. That's, I would say, the most important thing to consider. And yeah, just as what was said before, just being a understanding and responsive landlady or landlord, because you want to know, or as a tenant, you want to know that you could call on your landlord and they would be able to rectify whatever issues you have. So I would say finding the search for the right tenant, don't just look at the dollar signs, but look at the individual and whether they're fit for your space and whether you feel confident that they will maintain the space and you don't have to spend half of what they paid in rent to fix it once they're gone.
Yeah, agreed. Even with us, I think at the time I didn't realize. I knew that we were in our starter home, but I didn't view it as an investment per se until we had to move. In the way of income generating. I'm sure that obviously we had talked about that, but even the possibility and what that would do for our family, I didn't really think about that. And when we became landlords out of circumstance, moving out of the country, and like you say, you have to vet the person. But for us, it's been a good experience. One of the most shocking things for me was, we had beautiful furniture, in my opinion, but she didn't want it because obviously it would be a more liability for her. Same light sofa. We had a live edge table. And if any of those things got damaged, that's a security deposit gone just like that. And so, you have to take those things into consideration as well, preferences. So, I would say go with something that is minimally furnished or no furniture and let them make it their own. And that limits the liability for you as well.
Yeah.
For us being out of the country, we need people we trust to go in and fix whatever goes wrong. Washing machine, you need a plumber on deck. You need trusted people to go in, to who you could call to say, hey, can you run down here and make sure she's okay? So all of those different things, that we had to do as landlords. And Ian is
And
more
then you
of
need your banker on deck too.
a what?
The banker to collect the rent.
Yeah,
Ian is more of the,
digitized.
like, my
Digitized.
my tenant is family, like, and I've had to tell Ian, you got to set boundaries. He wants to form these lifelong relationships. So cute, but what stood out to you? What was some of the key things with becoming a landlord?
I just think, particularly in the Bahamas, I think there's a little difference when it comes to being able to vet somebody.
Yeah.
Sashia, you guys might, in Canada, I'm sure you guys have the resources where you can do background checks and get the credit history on somebody, or find out exactly who their previous landlords were. In the Bahamas, it's not quite
In there. In there.
You just kind of go on a whim, and you're taking a huge risk and a chance when you choose somebody to actually live in your unit. And so the most we could do, the most that I know that I did, was trying to find a page on Facebook. And no, seriously, that's the most I literally could do. Try and find their page on Facebook and just look at their profile and see what I could glean from their profile that was out there in the public. And I think those kinds of things are necessary, particularly when you're talking about somebody who you know nothing about moving into your home.
And you also used your aunt.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Okay.
Thankfully, we had my aunt she's a real estate agent, and she was actually the person that brought us in contact with this individual. And so he could also, this was somebody that I trusted, could now also vouch for this person. Now, obviously, at the back of your head, you're still thinking, well, she has a vested interest to want to rent this, because obviously she's getting a commission from this, right? And so she's looking out for her pocket, but at the same time, you want to find somebody that you can trust. And,
so, question, before you left, you guys put your property on a listing? That's how you did it?
That's just it. We didn't even get to the point of listing our property. My aunt just had, I think at one point she had inquired when we had just relatively recently made the decision to move. And so it kind of all just worked out.
But there was a lot of interest in it as
well. There was a lot of interest in it prior to that, because you posted it. You did something.
I think I posted on my Instagram.
Yeah.
And we got quite a bit of interest in it. It's a two bed, 2.5 bath. Pretty modern, decent sized yard, quiet area. So it was the demand was good for it. And so we didn't have many issues there. I think one of the hardest things was at the last minute trying to sell everything, because you don't want to put you don't want to pay for storage. And so that was one of the trickiest things for us.
I think even for her as a tenant, she didn't want to continue to pay for storage even after she moved into a place. Yeah. I think that kind of also influenced the fact that she didn't necessarily want anything in there, because she wanted to move everything that she'd already purchased into the unit. But we have a great tenant. Normally when she does have an issue, what I did was I got a listing of all of the different, like whether or not it's fixing the washing machine, because the washing machine went bad before. So I knew the person to contact. Anybody who needed to fix an appliance, if there's anything that needed to be done around the house, I had all those contacts. I gave her those contacts. And I also said, you obviously, you could reach out to me. And then we have one of our friends that who we trust. He's there. If you need something done, like immediately, any small maintenance issue, you can reach out to him as well. And so I think it's so important as landlords to have these things in place for your tenants, so that they have somebody to call. So even if they can't necessarily reach you, that they can reach somebody in order to get their issue resolved.
Something else that obviously being a landlord is the cleaning you have to do obviously after us and in between tenants, period. Yeah. That you're responsible for. You gotta repaint. I know Sashia, you may not have done it yet. You gotta repaint, make sure all the baseboards are clean, every single nook and cranny is clean. So you may even have to repolish your tub, all of these different things, because you are responsible for the experience of that individual. And just Michael, I don't know if you have anything else to add before I go to my very last question.
No, as it relates to the tenants and finding a tenant, we have been here 11 years now. Yeah. We've literally had 3 tenants in that space. And we only got to the third one because the second person, she actually turned it over to her sister. So it was pretty much 2 tenants. Yeah. And we never listed our first tenants when they saw us renovating, when we first purchased it.
They live in the area.
They lived in the area, they grew up in the area, they were getting married, and they wanted to stay in the area. And that was it. We prayed about it, and that was it. And I'm just thankful for that. That's a blessing. That for all the stories that we've heard,
I'm telling you,
it's a blessing.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think it's important also, you know, for even as a landlord, and I know Zemi doesn't like how hands-on I am with certain things, particularly with being a landlord. But like I think it's important for you to do your home checks. You know what I mean? I think a lot of people might necessarily take that granted or feel like you're infringing in somebody's privacy. But I think that's important. I mean, that's your home. Like I think it's important for you to make sure that, you know, your investment is being kept properly.
Well, Sashia could talk to that because you don't want to step outside of the bounds of your lease agreement, right? You can't just show up as a landlord.
No, but it's
no. You have to give enough notice.
I'm not saying just show up.
No, you have to give enough notice, and it boils down to, yes, I agree, protecting your investment, because if they're in there, I mean, I was in my property when I was renting for 5 years, and my landlord, I wouldn't say he was bad, but he was very hands-off. We only spoke once a year when it was time to renew the lease, and he never once set foot in the condo unit. That being said, like, I treated it as if it was my own, because I didn't want to lose my security deposit, and naturally I'm that person. I try to keep things organized, and I would want the same for anyone if I became a landlord. So, I mean, that's not to say that you are not allowed in the unit. You are allowed. You give them 24 hours notice. You let them know what you're coming to do. Because, I mean, it may be that they are not reporting something that could become a problem if left untouched. And they may just know that it's problematic. But if you go there, you see something, you're like, oh, well, there is a bubble on the wall where maybe there's water behind the pane. They may not think much of it, or they may be afraid to tell you something because they don't want you to come in. But if you go and you see, then you could rectify it before it becomes a more expensive problem. So I'm not against that. I mean, for me, it's very new, so I would hope nothing is wrong. And because it's a new construction, anything that's wrong within the first year is covered by the builder's warranty. So I kind of have that peace of mind that if anything structural or substantial is a problem, then the builder has to correct that. But going forward, after that warranty is over, then it's up to me to make sure that I pay attention to these things so that I could correct them before they become a huge problem that takes too much money out of my pocket. So no, I agree. I agree with something that you are within your rights to do, and you should exercise that right if you feel the need to.
I agree.
Definitely. JJ family says agreed. I had that issue. I give notice, and we have it understood that I am able to come in at any time. Great contribution. So thank you to both. And my final question is really about the difference between being a renter and being a homeowner, the pros and cons. So let's start with the cons, the downside of being a homeowner, and then we could go to the pros. Sashia, I know you are having to shovel snow because you own the home, you are responsible for for doing that. So we'll start with you, the cons and the pros of being a homeowner.
I'll start with the cons first. The added expenses, things that you otherwise wouldn't worry about as a tenant, you have to worry about. For example, water heater is bad or it's close to its replacement time, you have to pay to replace that. About a month or two ago, our furnace went bad. You have to pay to replace that. You always have to be wondering if the pipes are good. There was experience of, the pipes bursting your wall for you. So, I mean, it's things that you otherwise wouldn't think of because you're just paying rent. You're paying rent and maybe you're paying utilities depending on who your landlord is. But as a homeowner, you're paying mortgage, you're paying utilities, you're paying insurance, you're things that are broken, you're renovating things that you don't like. If you have a roof, then you're fixing your roof. Right now, I have to get some repairs done to my roof because over the years, the previous owners, there was a problem with the roof. there was some leakage. They replaced the shingles, but they didn't replace the wood underneath. So
Mm-hmm.
that's not a new issue that happened since you've been here, but it went untouched for some time, and now the wood is rotten, so it has to be replaced. So there are things that you cannot always plan for, but obviously you have to make sure that you have an emergency fund so that you can dip into that fund when things that you plan for happens. So having that kind of liquidity available, that or access to that liquidity for when things come up, those are the cons I would say mostly. Shoveling the snow, I'm still enjoying it. So to speak.
Exercise.
It's exercise, and in the spring and summer I can do gardening, so that's also very nice. So I wouldn't say that's a con, not yet. But the pros are just being in your own space, knowing that it's yours. I mean, I know when I was renting, not that I felt like I wasn't in my own space, but as a renter, sometimes you have certain restrictions, like you can't hang stuff permanently on the wall, so you can't drill the walls. So I found what I was doing before, I never had pictures or anything up on the wall because I was always concerned about damaging the wall, scraping the paint, anything like that. So I would use like the Velcro or whatever to temporarily stick pictures. But obviously, if it gets too hot, it sweats, it falls off. So there was nothing ever permanent with being a tenant because it's not, you don't feel like it's yours because you can't do anything that you want with it.
Mm-hmm.
As a homeowner, you can do whatever you want. You can paint the walls green, pink, purple. You can put up as many pictures as you want. It's your space to be free and to be open. So I like that, and also the peace of mind that a landlord cannot come and say, "Oh, I want to use a space for my own," because that happened to me. Even though I was in the process of looking for my home at that time, just at the time of renewal, my landlord wanted more money for his rent, and it wasn't legal for him to ask the amount that he was asking for. And so he chose to evict me. Obviously, that's how I learned that tenants have a lot of rights, and I exercised my rights, and he wasn't within his rights to do what he did. But just knowing that you can be evicted for the simply not paying as much rent as the market is offering because you've been in there for a long time, that will give you the peace of mind. So those are things that you always have to have at the back of your mind as a tenant, but as a homeowner, unless you are not able to meet your mortgage obligations, that's really the only time that you are in fear of losing. Yeah. So I would say that's, for me, the biggest pro of being a homeowner, just the peace of mind that this is yours and you can do what you want with it. No one can come in and say, you need to get out. I think that's the most peaceful and calming experience about being a landowner, I would say.
Yep. Ian?
It was a comparison between being a
Pros and cons of home ownership. You start with the cons.
cons of home ownership. Well, I think for me, it's just obviously there's the ongoing costs. We decided to purchase in a gated community, and so there's HOA that you need to consider that we not necessarily consider. While the HOA isn't too excessive where we live, it's still a cost that you have to factor in.
You feel like it's still in the mortgage.
Yeah. And
So
particularly
like
if you're not
about
paying for your covering your HOA on a regular basis, once that accumulates, it can feel like a large sum of money. And so what we try to do is we try to pay our HOA like a year in advance, just so that it's covered for a year in advance. Then obviously, there's insurance. Insurance just continues to skyrocket. That's an additional cost.
Being in the hurricane zone.
Yeah, being in the hurricane zone. Yeah, you really have to take those things into consideration. And then we also installed an irrigation system in the yard. And I'm not sure whether that was the best decision that I made when I actually installed it, given the fact that I don't even think that it's really that much in use at the moment because I guess it was a rainy season, so there was really no need to cut it on. But hopefully over the long run, that will pay for itself. Any other cons?
Oh, like Sashia said, we had a lot of the unexpected costs come up. So the air conditioning.
Yeah, I was about to say that. That's right. The air
quite a number of times we had to switch electricians. And
you know what happened when we actually initially moved in? There was actually some issues we had with our air conditioning unit that really should have been covered by the person that we purchased from. And I just had a really, really horrible experience because we went to the same individuals that actually installed the units. And then I told them to proceed with the work under the assumption that the original homeowner would cover the cost. But because I guess we had already purchased it, and that was the assurance that the air conditioning company also gave us, that, yeah, no problem, we'll just make sure get this covered from such and such a person. So after they had actually done the work, did the installation, fixed the issue, and also they had to install another vent in the room, they came back and brought me the bill. And I'm like, but I thought you all said that this was supposed to be covered by such and such. Oh, no, you guys are the owners now, blah, blah, blah. And so it's so important for you, just like you really got to know, like you have to know who covering what. And you can't take some, and I guess I was gullible enough to take somebody's word for it.
Because we also purchased the home without the electricity.
Yes,
so we couldn't test which appliances were working, etc. So that was something that I would never, ever, ever suggest anybody to do. Make sure the power is on
before you purchase, so you can test everything in the unit. Get plugs that didn't work. We had a fan that didn't work. The air conditioning unit had an issue. So those were some of the cons. But the pros are ones it's obvious, you have an investment, you have something that belongs to you. And I think it's so empowering as an individual or even as a couple when you realize that you have your piece of the rock. You have something that belongs to you. I felt empowered through that process. And in terms of purchasing a home, I know that can never be taken away from me, well, except by the bank, if I don't pay off the mortgage. But once again, you have now something that you have a vested interest in. And it's so empowering to actually have a home and something that you can call your own. What other pros are there?
I think just getting to decorate your home with your partner, and going through that process of really making it your home. Like I have friends who would expect if I was a single woman, they always knew the type of home they'd walk into if it was just me. But walking into the home of Ian and I, that's a totally different experience from what they would have thought. And so that process and designing and redesigning, although it has its frustrations, it's also a great one when you get to come to a happy medium and you see things start to really take shape. And so that whole journey.
I think also for me, it's caused me to look forward to when Zemi and I actually build our final home, build our forever home. I'm looking forward to that process and what that process will look like, what our forever home will look like. Because even as we continue to learn and understand one another, we get and develop an appreciation for one another's tastes. And so, like bringing in this green couch.
Just give me the card.
No, not at all. That's not what I'm saying. But having this green couch here, like I've developed an appreciation for this green couch. And because I've now, it's in the space, you kind of have to consider it when you're continuing to plan for the rest of the space. But once again, you get an appreciation for your other significant other's tastes. And it teaches you to compromise and collaborate through the process. So I'm looking forward to that time when we could buy our final property and build our forever home.
Yep, agree. Yeah. Pros and cons, returning tomorrow.
Well, you guys said it all.
Yeah, pretty much.
But I want you to help me convince Tamara to get some house plants. That's something that I start liking, especially
after. They take now,
Tamara,
and they don't have to necessarily be real.
Listen,
I want the real ones.
Exactly. He purchased 2 house plants on Friday. He brought them home, and of course, when you then sell the girls to dream and they on board, like who are you to not be on board? So he got 2 house plants for their room. I'm not interested. We have the backyard gardening going on that already expanded all along the fence. All these different plants
in the home,
in the pots and all this.
See, after the pandemic, what we did, we did the yard over. I got some new plants. We did the grass and everything over. So I said, man, outside looking so good. I wanted this same greenery inside the house. So there's a space in the corner right here where I'm sitting. I want to put a nice plant right here.
See, Richard will busy. He will busy everything. He will busy every thing. Our house on the outside is green. It lights up the whole neighborhood, like literally. That's us. We have enough.
Yes, 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 yes. Thank you. That's the one.
No. I
We
can't.
could
I
go
can't. I think,
all
but
the time. The fiddle leaf, but there it's so many tomorrow is plants that match your home interior perfectly.
I quite there yet.
Get your plants. I would do
I
Get
quite.
your
We
plants.
can see how the plants in the girls' room survive, considering it only has to be watered once a week. We'll see how that survives before we do anything else. I really sold on it, but you guys pretty much said.
But we put up a Christmas tree every year. So what's the difference between the Christmas tree and the plant? We don't have to buy no Christmas tree. We can have the plant right here. What you think? What you think, Zemi? Help me out.
You straying away from the conversation. The
Help
pros
me,
and
Eric.
the cons. What are the pros and the
I
cons?
Go
can't
ahead.
help you.
I think I hear you and Ian talking about the forever home and Sashia with her
Sashia.
forever home already purchased. This is our forever home. Richard knows, I think after our home buying experience, even people to work know, because like thankfully, colleagues become friends. So we used to have like open floor discussions about how things have changed and, figuring life out after savings has been depleted. For me, Richard knows if he talks about a forever home outside of here, Tamara don't want to know. I'm packing up nothing. Make sure it's turnkey and my clothes in the closet. Whatever you put me in, I good. I don't want no part of that. It's too much. It's too much. So that's my final. If you can do outside of this, just tell me.
It's back in there.
Just pull up there. You just gotta pull up
Oh,
there.
just send you the link. Say, hey, this is the direction.
Yeah, meet me to this location. Everything already. I'm interested.
I agree. It is a lot of work, and obviously we had to move country, and we decided that we're only gonna move with suitcases, not only clothing and shoes, no furniture, just to avoid the stress. Now, when we come back home, Mom, are you watching? When we said we're coming back home, when we come back home, we want to take all of our furniture home, so that's going to be a whole different process. But that is our conversation tonight. The raw truth about home ownership. I think we covered quite a number of areas. Shanna said, I hate the packing and moving process too. She's with you tomorrow. So thank you, everyone. I don't know if we can go around the room. You can say where people can reach out to you if they want to stay connected with you. You can let them know anything that you have going on publicly, or just closing remarks for future homeowners. Either one of those or one of those. If you say I don't want people contacting me, then you could just say here are some tips for homeowners. It's up to you. But I just wanted to thank you all for coming on tonight to share with people your process, the intimate details of your journey. Because I know it's going to be so helpful for others who want to or who are going through the same process. So, Tamar and Richard, you first.
Well, I mean, I'm on Facebook. Tamara Does Mangoes. Also can be found on the Wife Her platform. What I would say, particularly to couples, married, engaged, buying a home, buying a property, know that it will be a test of faith. Like Zemi would have said, that same person you see when the pressure is real, that is the person that you will be living with. And so I would say if the conversation gets heated enough, where there are waterworks, just step away. Step away. Let's agree that we will not continue in this vein because obviously nothing fruitful will come from this. And let's pick this back up another day. And it, like marriage, will be a lot of compromising. So each one of us, we are our own individual person, but because we are sharing the space, you have to compromise with the next person. So that's my tip.
I agree.
We're gonna go plan shopping when I come home. Don't worry. Sashia?
I also can be found on Facebook. And the main thing I would say to any home buyer, whether it's your first property or whether it's your second or your forever home, your wants are not always your needs. So know the clear difference between your wants and needs, and don't let your wants stand in the way of you getting your needs, because a lot of times, depending on where you live, the market might be slow moving, it might be fast moving, like here in Canada. If you are hell bent on certain things that when you look at it in the grand scheme of things is not really a need, it's a want, you may miss out on that dream home that you could have gotten had you just gave up one or two things on your list. I would say know clearly what your wants are and what your needs are, and know that you should go after your needs and not turn away an opportunity because it doesn't fit one or two of your wants. So that will be my main takeaway to anyone that's looking to buy a property.
And then I think for me, and you know, if you have anything else as well,
Sure.
but you know, think about the end in mind. Think about the end at the beginning. So yes, you're moving into a starter home per se if you're a newlywed couple. You know, like tomorrow, those they may decide, oh, we're gonna renovate later, go up a story, expand on this as well. They thought about the income generation at the beginning, hence they decided with a duplex versus a single family. And for us, you know, we couldn't find what we wanted originally in our budget. So we knew that we were going to have a starter home, which ended up being a great decision as an investment property, which, you know, helps us to be in a better position for the next step. And so, you know, think about the end at the beginning when you're making your home. Think about the area, you know, how much you're customizing the home to your taste in particular, if this is going to become an investment property and things like that. And also, you know, you may have clashes, but that doesn't mean that, you know, your relationship is doomed. You know, you may have some waterworks, and you just have to learn to understand each other better and to collaborate on solutions that really work for you as a couple, and to understand that your style is being defined throughout this process. So you may have come in with one particular style, but together you have a whole new home style in mind. And so just keep that in mind throughout the process, that you're growing. What you thought would be a dream home at 10 years old isn't what you want at 25, 30, 40. And so, you know, make sure that you're prepared to adjust not only to your changes, but also your spouse as well. And also with kids. We didn't get to talk about what that was like, you know, making sure the kids feel like they have a part of the home process. So we'll keep that in mind for next year.
Yes.
But definitely, I had a great time tonight. This is our finale in the home purchase process. And I really also wanted to shout out some of our viewers. We had Joy McKinney, who was rocking with us the whole time,
Thanks,
giving
Joy.
great feedback. We really appreciate you, Joy. Thank you for watching. We had Gerda Culmer, who was
Gerda,
joining with
yeah.
us. Say it again.
Okay. Gerda.
Gerda, thank you for watching with us tonight. We had
Thanks, Gerda.
Chana Toot, who is our singles outreach officer. Thank you as well. We had Lakeisha, one of our speakers from last month, who's always rocking with us throughout this home ownership
Trooper Solutions.
series. We
Yeah.
thank you so much for joining tonight. And for anyone else, if you want, drop some love in the comments. Therese, thank you. You enjoyed listening. We thank you all so much for joining us tonight. Please subscribe to the Wife Her YouTube channel. That is a free way that you can sow into this ministry and bless our heart on the core team, as we call the core team, by just subscribing and sharing the channel. That's it. And so God bless you. Have an awesome week. And next month we move on to, I think, parenting. So definitely stay tuned for that series and have a blessed night. Thanks, guys.